Hello, I am Bliss, and this is the first video in a series that's going to describe to you what I have gone through over the last many years, decades, in my ascension process. And I'm sharing this because I want to help guide you to discovering who you truly are and what your mission is on this planet, on Gaia. See, I have discovered who I am, and I'll reveal that to you throughout the videos. And also, this is my mission, and that is to discover that and then to help others discover who they are and what your mission is. So that's what we'll be doing. And it is an amazing, amazing adventure. Believe me, filled with love and excitement and wonder and delight and opening up your heart and experiencing other people opening up their hearts. It doesn't get any better than this. I believe that the difficulties that we've all gone through are over, and now it's time to reap the rewards of our labors and to enjoy this process, enjoy the new earth, and that's where we're going. And one of the key parts of this is synchronicity. And if you're watching this video, there it is. It's synchronicity right there. So I'm going to tell a few stories about synchronicity, a few events that I came across. The first one is a story about a woman. Well, let me back up a little bit. So this happened about 4 or 5 years ago. And I was on my way, I had a doctor's appointment. And I was leaving my office and getting into my car in the parking lot. And when I got into the car, I turned the radio on, and we have a radio station here called Alternative Radio. And this woman was being interviewed right as I turned it on. So it was synchronistic because I was going to this doctor's office and they were going to tell me whether I needed surgery. It would have been not major surgery, but surgery enough for me that I didn't want to do it because I don't like surgery and I don't like pharmaceuticals and I don't like dealing with doctors because they either do surgery or they give you drugs. So that's another point. So I was heading there and I was a little bit apprehensive about what they were going to say. But once I heard this story, it changed all that. But here's the story. So this woman telling the story, I'll just call her Mary. I don't remember what her name was. So Mary is 50 years old telling the story. It's live. And when she was in her early 20s, she was at a county fair. And at the county fair, there was a river that ran by the fairgrounds. And a pilot had a biplane, and he would take people up in the plane and then fly around. And then the last thing he did is he would come down and he would touch on the river. We had pontoons on the bottom of the plane, which allowed the plane to float. And he would touch on the pontoons and skim up and then go up, and it would give the person kind of a thrill at the end of their ride. Well, inside these pontoons are wheels, so when they land on the ground, what they do is they put the wheels down so they can land on hard surface rather than on water. Well, so when he came down and hit the water with the pontoons, he forgot that the wheels were down and the plane flipped. And when the plane flipped, they both went upside down in the water, strapped in with harnesses, and the woman Mary, had she had not taken a breath of air. She got sucked in water, so she didn't have any air to sustain being underwater. And so she struggled for a few seconds, and then she just gave up. And she was just ready to die. And then as soon as that happened, her higher self gave her this image, this video in her mind of a police car pulling up to her mother's home, telling her mother that she had died. And her mother screamed in the vision so loud that it woke Mary up. And Mary decided at that moment she was not going to die. But she probably only had another 15 or 20 seconds left. I mean, we're talking, her higher self was having to work very quickly. So then her higher self sent her another image, and it was when she was like 13 or 14 years old. She was in training to be a lifeguard, and they showed a video of a car being upside down underwater, and people were in it, and they had to extricate the people from the car. So she watched that video as well, that vision. And so, and again, her higher self sent her that. She didn't even remember that it happened, that she had seen that video. And so then she figured out how to get out, and she got out, and she went to the surface, barely made it to the surface, and lived. And it was so important that she had that event happen in her life. She created that because this is what she ended up doing the rest of her life, and that was teaching people how to set intention and to create their heart's desire. That's what she learned from that. And what I learned from it in that the time I heard that story, before I got to the doctor's office, I was very confident. I was like, you know what? I am not going to need surgery. I am going to manifest. I am so confident. I am going to manifest that the doctor is going to say, no, I don't need the surgery, and that I can just heal this on my own. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. I did that. So that's a beautiful story about synchronicity and the higher self. And the higher self is always, always giving us events, situations. And oftentimes our egos don't like those events. Like Mary's ego didn't like that event, that situation where she's upside down underwater in an airplane harnessed in. Her ego didn't like that. But her higher self said, look, you need to have this experience because you need direction in your life, and this is going to give it to you. And the same for me, that I had this illness, I had this infection in my leg and got a blood clot, and I did not like that blood clot. I was in bed for 2 weeks. It was not pleasant. I was in a lot of pain, but I learned how to heal myself. I learned that I don't need a doctor to heal myself. I went to the doctor mostly because my naturopathic doctor suggested that I do that. And so I did that, and I'm glad I did because they told me that it was serious. So I had to get serious with reducing the, it's called thrombosis, reducing the size of my leg and increasing the circulation. And as a result of what they told me, I did that on my own. So I listened to my higher self, and I learned about healing, something I needed to know that I hadn't known before. And again, that's what your higher self is doing. It's giving you experiences all the time. And sometimes they're challenging and difficult, and you're not going to like them. But if you're not seeing what you're supposed to be doing, your higher self will give you things that point you in that direction. So if you have an illness, or you have something that is physically wrong with you, that's compromising your health, you're going to experience that, and then what are you going to do to heal that? Are you going to change your diet? Are you going to start exercising? Are you going to start doing self-care? Or are you going to keep doing what you have been doing? And if you keep doing what you have been doing, you're going to pay a price for that. And if you listen to your higher self, if you follow your intuition says, do this instead. If you do that, then you will benefit from the situation And then you go on to the next situation. So just take a moment and just feel that. Feel the feelings around that story. Feel the feelings in yourself about your higher self. Like pick a situation in your life that you've had where your higher self has given you something, a challenge. Maybe you had a job and then you lost it. Maybe you had, a certain living situation, and when COVID came along, you lost it. COVID created lots of change in people's lives. So just take a moment and feel into that. Feel a situation in your life where you were challenged, where maybe you didn't like it, and then what did you do with it? Did you meet that challenge? And if you didn't meet the challenge and you did something that you wish you had changed, believe me, you'll get another opportunity to change that. You will. The higher self does not give up. Like in that story, the higher self only had like 45 seconds, maybe a minute the most. And, she threw at Mary exactly what Mary needed. She didn't have time to waste. So just feel that. Synchronicity is an amazing, amazing, amazing tool that we have. Synchronicity is what connects us to our higher self, connects us to the Creator, connects us to the oneness. So I have another story. This one starts out as a tragedy, but ends up amazing, amazing miracle. So this is a story of a woman who, when she tells the story, she is about 81, 82 years old, and she's a friend of mine, and she actually told me that I can share this story with anyone. In fact, I had a radio program, and I played this story on my radio program. So her name is Betty, and the story is called Shimmering. So when Betty was in her early 20s, excuse me, I got a fly here buzzing around. She was married, and she had a 5-year-old son and a 2-year-old son. And one day, and her children were both very healthy, and one day the 5-year-old son collapsed. And they took him to the hospital. They took him to the doctor, to the hospital, Children's Hospital in Seattle. And they said he had some kind of neurological problem, and they needed to find a surgeon, and there weren't any locally. They were all away at a conference, so they had to fly. And anyway, he ends up that 3 days later, the child died. And of course, Betty and her husband were devastated to lose their 5-year-old son. So for 5 weeks, Betty says that she couldn't do anything. She and her husband really had very little communication, and that's really common when couples you lose a child. They oftentimes isolate themselves, and they don't even want to see their spouse because it reminds them of their child. So it's not uncommon for that to happen. But after 5 weeks, Betty wakes up one day and she's like inspired to clean her house. She hadn't done anything. She already cooked it all, and she didn't clean. And she was inspired, and she cleaned her house. And then as she finished cleaning, as we often do, I'm going to go get some flowers. So she goes outside in the garden, and she sees a quince tree, and it must have been in the spring because that's when quince trees blossom. And the tree was filled with beautiful flowers. So she takes her scissors and she goes over to the quince tree, and she's about to cut the flowers, and she goes, "Oh, no, I'm not going to do to this tree what was done to me. I'm not going to take its flowers from it like my son was taken from me. And all of a sudden, the tree starts communicating with her. And the tree says, oh, no, Betty. No, take my flowers. These flowers are beautiful, and I want to give them to you as a gift. And there is no loss. I am not losing these flowers. And you did not lose your son. You and your son had an agreement. This fly keeps bothering me. You and your son had an agreement before he was born that you would experience this with him, that you would have 5 wonderful years with him, and then it would be time for him to go. And you both agreed to that and wanted to do that. And he is not gone. He is around you all the time. And it would be better if you could reach out and start to believe that and start to communicate with him. Because he needs you to help him with his transition, and you need him. And the love between you is going to really benefit both of you. And then all of a sudden, she experienced the shimmering. She was out in her garden, out in the yard, and she said every blade of grass, every leaf, every plant, every flower was shimmering like she had never seen anything shimmer before. Everything just lit up. And she said it was like that for about a day. And she said what was sad about it was that she couldn't share it with anyone, not even her husband, because she said people wouldn't have believed her. They would have thought she was hallucinating, as a result of losing her son. But she always has that memory in her heart. And she said to the quince tree, how can I hear you now? And before I couldn't hear you. And the quince tree said, because when you came to me to cut that flower, and then the first nanosecond you saw me, that set the stage for how we were going to communicate. If you had just come and just started cutting the flowers, then we wouldn't have had this communication. But because you came and you had this caring for me, of not wanting to harm me, seeing me as real, as having feelings, then that's what happened. And then I was able to raise your vibration so you could see the shimmering in everything. And not only that, I inspired you to clean your house, because I knew once you cleaned your house, you would come out to cut flowers. And I knew you would come to me. Because this is what trees do. This is what we do. We help human beings deal with their emotions. And the more you can realize that, the better off you'll be. The more you'll be connected to the oneness, the more you'll be connected to nature. You'll be connected to plants, trees, even human beings, or even the devas of, that are out in the gardens, that are out in the world. So just remember that and know that we love you and we're here with you. So that was a beautiful story by Betty. So again, there's synchronicity. The synchronicity of, if she woke up in the morning and she was so depressed that she didn't clean her house, she never would have had that experience. But when she got up, she listened to her higher self, which said, Betty, clean your house. You're going to enjoy yourself if you do. You're going to have a great experience if you do. And of course she listened, and then she went outside to cut flowers. She listened again, and then she was open to this love in her heart for this for this tree and its flowers, its children. So that's a few stories about synchronicity, and this is the end of the first video. And I'm not sure I don't know what these videos are going to entail exactly. I just know I'm listening to my higher self, because my higher self is telling me that this is my mission, is to help others understand these concepts around moving into the new earth, who we are, what our mission is, how do we live in the 5D, in the fifth dimension, how do we let go of the third dimension and move into these higher vibrational existence. And so I've been living that for 10 years, and so I have lots of experience that I want to share with you. So please come back to my channel and enjoy these stories. Thank you.